Welcome to the Dan Pele channel. Welcome to the adventures of the Volkswagen Prince. Episode something. um, I'm re-recording it. I first recorded this in my car, but then I was like the lighting wasn't good and stuff, and I'm just like, you know what? I need to go out for a walk. Let me just record it, on my walk. So, anyway, I was kind of reflecting on something where so in general, I don't like to talk politics and religion, and a lot of people want to know, like what I believe, what I think, and I don't really give them a lot of that. In my TikTok and stuff, I just put like little nuggets out, this and that, and I kind of keep, well, not kind of, I keep my cards close to my chest. But it was so funny because I ended up getting into a conversation yesterday with two people that I wasn't planning on getting into a conversation with. The conversation took kind of a spiritual turn, and I wasn't expecting it, but I kind of got, I kind of end up throwing more out than I really wanted to. And I saw this as a bad thing at first because I'm like, like boundaries are for you. You got to respect them and stuff like that. And that's true, right? But looking at it, it was very, when I think about it now, it was like I needed that to happen because it kind of unlocked something that has been really pertinent to like my journey, my story. And what it unlocked was the fact that, like, first I'm gonna start off by saying this. There was a concert where Billy Porter was talking, and he was saying how I guess he was done with organized religion, and for, hey, that's not an opportunity for you guys to bash it, because organized religion really has done great things for a lot of people. And I really respect him for saying that, because while I believe what I believe and I think how I think, I don't necessarily bash organized religion. I believe that a lot of people, need a cause. They need something to follow. They need an example. They need something to believe in. And organized religion gives people that, right? It also creates division and derision and things like that, but we're not getting into that. So I just wanted to kind of point that out first. But what this conversation kind of really, in its own way, pushed me to, and it may have been much later, like in like a dream that I had after and stuff like that, what it really opened up was something that was, again, very pertinent to my journey in like religion and how I grew up. And what it illuminated me to was the fact that this sentence right here, well, two things. I guess I'll do the sentence first, and it is in the Bible somewhere, or I think it's in the Bible. Yeah, they would say it like it was. If it wasn't, and I hadn't read the Bible in a long time, but my parents would always say rebellion is a form of witchcraft, right? And that was just something that you didn't question, right? It's in the Bible, or they're saying that it's in the Bible, and so you feel like whenever you rebel, it's witchcraft. But being a child and coming up under that, you don't think, well, this is just this is just ideology that man created, and it's just part of a system to keep control, and you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not like thinking all that stuff, right? You're thinking, oh, if I do wrong, if I rebel, then I'm practicing witchcraft. And while I have gone my own way and believed the things that I have believed, people have accused me of witchcraft. And I think I really started diving into that, right? And I was like, okay, where was my first, because one thing that I do is I see discrepancies. I'm really good at seeing patterns, and I'm really good at seeing discrepancies. And so I started to think, what was one of the biggest discrepancies in my life when it came to the Bible and when it came to my, like, the church and upbringing? And this is where the story begins because I was able to pinpoint it very quickly, because I really remembered this happening and having such an impact on me. So I went to a church, and I think it was like a revival night or something, and I can't remember the lady's name. I wouldn't say it if I did, but she was preaching, And she actually started preaching on one of my favorite characters in the Bible, which was Esther. Now, let's get into it. Esther was basically symbolized beauty, modesty, humbleness, and these were the things that granted her favor. And it was so funny because these are the things that my mother would push on me, right? And it's funny that like when people ask me like what's my favorite book in the Bible, it's always Esther, right? But it's just because that was something that was really pushed on me as well. Like, you need to be humble, you need to be great, but be this. And it wasn't until I started being loud with my greatness that there was a problem with it. Ooh, but we're gonna get into that later. So anyway, the discrepancy here, right, is this is what really made me start to challenge a lot of things. The preacher wasn't preaching on Esther. She was in the book of Esther, but she was preaching from the point of view of Queen Vashti. And this story here was really, I want to say, what I'm just now realizing, the birth of my rebellion, the birth of, there's something else that is also true, right? And she basically talked about how Queen Vashti had the autonomy, the courage, and the gumption to say no to the king when he commanded her to come out and parade herself around him and his advisors and his men. She said no. She said no. Now, if Queen Vashti was so caught up with like wanting to keep her crown and power, then she would have said yes. She would have, quote unquote, humbled herself. This is what my mom would say, right? Like, if she was a real queen, she would have humbled herself and done what the king said, right? This feeds into like this male hierarchy, ideology that we push. And when this preacher was preaching this, I was like, I actually never thought about it, because Vashti was, in my household, demonized as a woman that was disobedient, that was rebellious, and she lost her crown because of doing that. But in the context that the woman was preaching on, she was saying how Vashti had courage, strength, in a time where women were not supposed to, in a time where women were supposed to be subservient. And there's something in that really kind of like sparked something in me, which was like, okay, Queen Vashti had the right to be autonomous in her womanhood and in her decisions. And if she didn't want to parade herself around men, she had every reason to say no. Mind you, you do what the king says or you lose your life type stuff. Like, these things were real back in the day. But Vashti didn't lose her life. She just lost her crown. At least that's what the Bible tells us. And so I started to connect the story of Vashti to my own, and how because of my rebellion, I was excluded. I was pushed out of things. I was, I don't have access to the things like other people in my family have, and I'm not living the life that they're living, and resources that would be available to me if I'd humbled myself like Queen Esther, I would have, right? This is the first discrepancy within my religious journey that I realized. And it's so funny because when I brought this POV to my mother on Queen Vashti, she pushed back very hard. Well, you don't want to be like Queen Vashti. She lost her crown. She was disobedient. Being humble and being pious and this and that is going to get you where you want to go. And this was the first discrepancy, because in my mind, I'm like, wow, it may be true that Esther was favored because of her beauty and her demeanor and her personality. At the same time, it doesn't take any validity away from Queen Vashti's story, which is, if you don't want to do something, you don't have to. And I think that even when you look at the story of Lilith being defiant and being on top during intercourse, showing that the woman can be dominant, she was cast out for that, and Eve was put in her place to represent the model of the type of woman that should be subservient, the type of woman that is a helpmate, the type of woman that is going to cook and clean and all these things, right? And so, because I have found myself drawn to the story of Lilith as well, which is no coincidence, because if you're drawn to the story of Vashti, if that story intrigues you, then the story of Lilith will as well. And so I'm putting a lot of these things together, and I'm connecting how, because I said no, because I stood on what I firmly believed in, there was consequences for it, grave consequences. And I think because of this discrepancy that was never really explained well, like when I brought this truth back to my mother, she dismissed it very quickly, because again, a rebellion is a form of witchcraft. And I got to a place in my life here where I was like thinking on this story. I'm like, I see myself in Queen Esther, but I also see myself in Queen Vashti. And what is so wrong with the duality of the two? What is so wrong with embodying the duality of both queens? I feel like preaching today. If you want to donate, if this word has helped you, my Cash App is on here. But no, seriously. And this is something that and this is why I don't necessarily do organized religion, because I see the agendas of the male hierarchy that's pushed, and because I see that this is how you fall in line. This is what we're using to help you fall in line. Because that is there, it's like, I believe in the autonomy of people, right? I believe in, if God gave us free will, and this happened, and this happened between Lilith and Adam, and she was discarded for it. She was discarded for it to serve the agenda of the hierarchy male, of the fact of the ideas of women being subservient and not, having their own mind and believing their own beliefs and coming second to the man, right? And so when we look at how we are, in religion and church and in the system of things, we come second. And we're supposed to take that subservient mindset to religion, to government. We're not supposed to be autonomous in this world. We're not supposed to, buck against the system. And I think because I asked so many questions and because I pushed so hard to try to figure out, but isn't this true as well, right? While this may be true for Esther, this still was true for Vashti, and it doesn't take the validity away from her. And we shouldn't demonize her for making the choice that she felt best fit her. She was so solid in her decision to say no that she was okay with losing her crown. That's the thing. And because I was so solid in my decision to say no, I don't want this, I was okay with losing whatever privileges came with being a Stanford or being at the, you know what I'm saying? Because yeah, and I could talk about this all day, but I don't want to go too far, and I'm already past my 10-minute mark. But this was the first discrepancy that had really stuck with me throughout my life, and it is really coming full circle with the idea of you can see yourself in all things. You can see yourself in all, because the way that I look at the Bible isn't necessarily like, oh, these are real people in real time. This does really happen. And while it may have really happened and it may have been real people, I look at the story of it. I look at the lessons in it. That's how I read it. That's how I view it. And when you look at the story and the lesson and what Vashti did and the way that that lady preached it that night, I can't remember her name, but she will go down in history books in my life because she, in that instant, really opened my eyes. Like, there really is more than what we're being told and what we're being asked to subscribe to. You just have to have the courage to kind of go out and find that. Come on, confirmation. But I'm gonna leave it at this. But I just really thought, like, man, this will really share, and I was like, and with that phrase, rebellion is a form of witchcraft, it was working so heavily to keep me in line because I didn't want to be accused of witchcraft. But it's like now I'm also at a point where it's like, I understand that people demonize what they don't know. People demonize what they feel is against like their system of beliefs. And so you're always going to, anything that is outside of what somebody thinks or believes is right is always going to be condemned as witchcraft. That's always going to be, but because I live out my heart space, it's what's the intention of the heart, right? And even the word witchcraft is like, and I'm not even gonna go into that, but I think there has been so many illusions that have been breaking down for me, and all I can really do is be grateful. So yay. I love when things like this come around full circle for me. And so it's like, while I was in the headspace of like, I really shouldn't be having this conversation with y'all, it really was like the kickstart to bringing my memory back to that message in the book of Esther, and the story of Queen Vashti, and making the connections between Adam, Lilith, and Eve. So anyway, I love you guys so much. Peace, love, and light. Continue to work on your shadow. Continue to ask questions. Continue to do you.